Stop telling that you're going to be mine. Oh, I can't tell you how I feel.
A man once shot an eagle out of the sky. And he went over to examine the body of the eagle, and he found the dry skull of a weasel attached to the eagle's neck. Its teeth sunk into the eagle's flesh. There's only one possible explanation for what had happened. Just as the eagle had swooped down and was about to get its talons into that weasel saw the shadow of that eagle over its shoulder, and it did the one thing that it knows how to do. And it swiveled its head around and sunk its teeth into that tender live spot on the eagle's neck in an act of self-preservation, an instinctual act of self-preservation. And he almost won. But that eagle picked the weasel up and took it hundreds of feet into the air and flew around for who knows how long, and landed eventually, and flew and landed until the eagle's fur fell off and its bones came off of its body and scattered in the woods. And the only thing that was left was the teeth and the skull attached to that eagle. Who knows how many days it had held on. That's the image that Annie Dillard, who's one of my favorite writers, gives in an essay called Living Like Weasels. A weasel has truly changed my life and the way that I think about life. And her point was, what's that single necessity that you need to latch your teeth into today and not let go and never let go no matter where it takes you? So I want to reframe that image of the weasel in terms of life. What kind of life did the weasel have? How is it acting out of its life? What kind of life do we have? Is it different than the weasel? And what can we learn from the weasel in this gathering here today? So a word about the conference name. Of course, we have one word for life in English. And it should be no surprise the Greeks had more than one word for life. And I think it's very instructive to explore those two words. Now, I won't do them justice for the linguists in the room. Please forgive me. There's a complex history of the way that these two words were used. But they tend in a certain direction in Scripture and in Greek usage. The first word for life that the Greeks had was bios. And it's not simply biological life. It's life that has a shape and a form and a particular life. You can find it. It's the kind of life that you could write a biography about. That's bios. They had another word for life, which was zoe. And zoe is the word that Aristotle used when he tried to describe the mysterious eternal, what we might call God. An eternal life, the kind of aliveness that is just in all living things, that, like Jordan said, is very difficult to describe. It's difficult to picture. It's the kind of a life force underneath the biological life that we experience. Zoe is very difficult to describe, but that's the kind of life that we want to talk about today. The Italian philosopher Giorgio Agamben famously drew this distinction, and he actually saw that bios, he thought, was a higher form of life than zoe, because bios can be organized into political life and social life and different forms of life. It's not just the bare vitality. It's life after it's taken on a shape. But of course, the evangelist John in the Gospels also used the word zoe to refer to a life in relationship. I came to give them zoe, and zoe in abundance, and nobody will ever snatch it out of my hands. In him was zoe. So this is very different, a kind of life that Aristotle could have never imagined. It is life that is found in a relationship or in a participation with a higher form of life, something very different than kind of a base vitality or the way that we normally think about life. What is life exactly? I mean, this question is so basic that we forget to ask it. It's why we decided a year ago that this conference was going to be on something that fundamental. All of these questions that I hear on a daily basis, machine consciousness. Well, it seems like there's something more fundamental than just consciousness, something beneath consciousness. We know that there are things that are conscious, there are beings that are conscious, but we treat their lives very differently than we treat our own. So it seems like there's something far more fundamental than the question of consciousness, and that is life itself. Even the effective altruism questions, which lives are worth investing in? And how do we move from merely preserving life and extending life to more abundant life? Looks maxing, sleep maxing, certainly didn't do that last night. Health maxing, all of those things seem to me to be very compartmentalized versions of a deeper search for a more abundant life. But you can only maximize a quantity. You can't max your way to being known or loved by another person, for instance. So everyone is searching for that fullness of life in various ways, and we want to try to get at the heart of it today. There's a quote by Edgar Dijkstra, or at least it's attributed to Edgar Dijkstra, who said that computer science is as much about computers as astronomy is to telescopes. And I think that's right. Is AI really about computers? Or is it a window into the mystery of life, the mystery of the human person? The Pope certainly thought so. This is the encyclical that he wrote, uses artificial intelligence as that Dijkstraian window into something more profound, the mystery of what it means to be alive and what it means to be human. Now, I titled this talk somewhat provocatively, Magnifica Machina. The Pope's was Magnifica Humanitas. This is Magnifica Machina. Because my 2.5-year-old daughter ran into my office one day, a couple of months ago, and she pointed at the Mac Mini running all of my AI agents on my desk, humming along, and she said, "That's magnificent." I have no idea where she learned that word. She must have heard it on one of the shows she watches or at her daycare. I have no idea. But she pointed at that computer and said, "That's magnificent." And I said, well, now I definitely know what I'm going to give my talk on. What does magnificence even mean? Well, the word literally means, magna facere, it means to make great things. To make great things. So this is the virtue par excellence of the entrepreneur, of the great entrepreneur, makes great things. And the Greeks, classically, magnificence was a virtue. It is a habit that one can develop. We can habitually get good at investing our time and energy in making great things. So it's a human virtue. It's not a virtue that belongs to the machines. They're great because we made them. The cathedrals were great and magnificent because the people who made them were magnificent. They participate in that magnificence. So the things that we make take on a life of their own. We transfer our own human magnificence and the participation in the lives that we have into the tools that we make. And these tools can deepen or cheapen or confuse or invite or transform the lives of the people that use them. They're never neutral. And by the time you leave here today, we are going to give all of you a tool, an artifact that we hand-forged for each and every one of you. Every single one of them is unique. And I won't tell you what it is yet. Please don't leave here without it. It is not TSA approved. So please pack it in your bag or mail it. And we want you to sit with that for the next few weeks or a year. Hopefully we'll see you back here. And we can talk about the ways that it may have changed you. Now I want to end here with a confession and a caution. See, we have to be very careful because the life that we possess can be taken from us. Life is not a thing, it's not a binary. And it exists on a spectrum, and we can lose it. And I don't just mean our biological life. I mean this deeper form of life, the Zoe, the one that preserves us from artificiality and superficiality and unreality. That life can be lost. No, the world can choke it out of us. Even on the way here, that almost happened to me. It was amazing. And I have to say, I think that we need to get good at resurrection. Resurrection, or letting ourselves be resurrected, is going to be one of the most important things we can learn how to do. Even growth in virtue is not linear. Life is not linear. It's not like a video game where you keep accumulating points until you win. So getting good at resurrection is going to be really, really important. This is why I think even the field of virtue ethics will need to be rethought and reconsidered at a deeper level in an age of incredibly rapid technological change. And I'll tell you my own way of experiencing resurrection. I have failed so many times in my life. I've went bankrupt, I've lost friends, I've despaired, I've signed up for gym memberships that I've never used a single time. I still, to this day, walk in my house after a long day, looking on my phone or looking at Twitter when my daughter, my 2.5-year-old daughter, just wants my attention. It's hard. I fail constantly. But the one thing that I've done in my life, really the thing that I'm probably the most proud of, the hardest thing that I've ever done, the only thing that I think I've really been successful in doing, is that almost every week, I would say on average every week, for approximately the last 17 years of my life, I have examined my conscience and went to the sacrament of confession on a weekly basis. Even when I'm in a foreign country and I don't speak the language of a priest, and tell you how humiliating it is to be translating my sins on a phone and repeating them 10 or 12 times until he understands what I'm saying. Okay. And I know that not even half of the people in this room are Catholic. That's my story. That's one of the ways that I've practiced the art of resurrection. But we all need to find a way to begin again, to come back to our senses when the world scrambles them and leaves us for dead, when we make mistakes, because we're not going to get everything right in the next decade or two as we try to figure out incredibly rapid change. Moses put it like this: I set before you life and death. Choose life, something that we have to continue to choose. It's not a one-time choice. I have to wake up every day and choose it. And the story of the prodigal son, which is my story, the son leaves, he forsakes his father, he leaves, he squanders his father's money, and he comes back. And notice, the father doesn't say, my son has transgressed, he has disowned me, and now I forgive him. He says, my son was dead, and now he's alive. Rejoice. So Zoe, as I've experienced it, is something in relationship. All of these things that we talk about, agency and freedom and fulfillment, usually in a very individualistic sense, I have come to find them in the relationship that I call Zoe. One of my favorite theologians, favorite thinkers, period, yes, even more than René Girard, wrote a book in 1963 by this title, and I think it's the most prescient book that's been written in the last 100 years. He wrote it in 1963, far before the time of thinking machines, and I think it is a prophetic title of a book. And the title of the book is Love Alone is Credible. Love alone is credible. We don't believe in things, we believe people. And as we move into an incredibly uncertain future, please remember those words, that love alone is credible. And how can we show that to others and move from the self-preservation of the weasel, the kind of life, the form of life that is fundamentally about self-preservation and into the form of life that is about self-gift, where we find Zoe. So while I have been tremendously and thoroughly inspired by that weasel, by the story of that weasel, we'll say that weasel changed my life as I've meditated on him for the last 10 years, we have something far greater than an eagle to hold on to today and in the weeks to come. Look around the room. You'll find life. Thanks.